Hi, my name is Braden Weber, and as you can tell, I'm not in class today. But I'd still like to present my project on Ethereum, so that's what I'm going to do. We'll get started with who created Ethereum. It was Vitalik Buterin. He was 19 when he created Ethereum. He was born in 1994, and he has a background in Bitcoin. And his interest in Bitcoin led to him writing forums and eventually founding Bitcoin Magazine. A little bit after he founded Bitcoin Magazine, he went to Waterloo, University of Waterloo, and a year later, he dropped out. He really wanted to get focused on Ethereum and developing the white pages, and so that's what he did. His main points with the white page was to create a new blockchain to be Turing complete. So this would eliminate the problem with Bitcoin and the spam problem where actually, Bitcoin didn't even have Turing completeness because they didn't want to have a spam problem. So what the spam would do is it would generate a code like an if-then statement that would just loop over and over and over again. But with that, you could only, for Bitcoin, for its purpose, it didn't need a program that looped over and over again, because there was also the problem with a lack of state, because the lack of state, the purpose of Bitcoin was to create a currency. And so you had a state, a transaction, and then a new state. And so, for example, if I had $5 and I wanted to give it to Paul, I'd say, here's my $5. There'd be a transaction period, and then there'd be a new state where I didn't have any money and Paul had $5. So that's how that worked. But that's basically what Vitalik's doing, is he's creating a new blockchain that's going to allow for more uses in the future, and really just overall make a better blockchain. So the native digital asset for Ethereum is an Ether. And I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on both of these. But the main purpose is for applications to require Ether to pay for every operation. And so I like to explain that by using this analogy right here. And I actually found this online, but I think it's very helpful. Actually, here, I'll blow this up real quick. That way you can see me. There's a good shot of my chin. Alrighty. So I have a road here, and this road is 10 miles long. And I have a truck for $10. This truck can go 1 mile. And so the application, yeah, you can kind of see that. Anyways, the operation here is it needs to go. I don't want it going the whole 10 miles because I don't want to spend $100 for this operation or for this transaction to occur. And so what Ethereum has done is it has said, okay, you can make a gas limit, and I'll show you this a little bit later, to where it only spends $50 for this transaction. And I'll show you a little bit later what it means, but basically this truck will stop after it's gone 5 transactions. So if you have an if-then statement, it is going to go through this process once or twice. Well, it's going to go through it 5 times, but I'll show you in a minute. The other purpose for Ethereum is for mining purposes, and Ether is a reward for mining. So it's a decentralized system that is trying to reward people for contributing to the system. And I'm going to take this off my face. and move it up here. So as you see, we have Ron Swanson on the side, and I'll explain why we have Ron Swanson. So with the mining system, there is this ghost method that is pretty popular. It's developed by two people in 2013. And what this does is Bitcoin, after somebody mined it, we talked about how in Bitcoin, there's a miner and there's a block. And the person who mines the block the fastest will win. And so we looked at all this technology and saw these videos where whoever mined it the fastest, there's these $1 million buildings that are just invested into mining Bitcoin and different cryptocurrencies. So what this system does is it rewards people who are able to mine it and finish the block, but it also doesn't penalize people who worked on the block and contributed to helping it out. So in a way, this doesn't give the reward to the person with the biggest infrastructure for mining blocks. Another thing that happens when there's the token distribution is there are 8 million Ether released per year. Now, this is different than Bitcoin because Bitcoin said we're going to have 21 million that's going to be mined, completely mined by 2140. Ether has gone the opposite route, saying we'll just release 18 million each year. And so in 2 years, it's going to have 36 million. And, this released in 2015. So we've already got way more. And so a lot of people say this is just going to bring down the inflation rate of the Ether. And you have to put into account, and this is why I brought Ron Swanson into the picture, is because he's one of the people that doesn't trust the government, decentralization. So when Ron Swanson dies, nobody's going to have access. The government's not going to have access to the money because he doesn't believe in banks. His family's not going to have access to his money because he doesn't believe in writing wills either. So nobody is going to have access to Ron Swanson's information, just like if Ron Swanson owned Bitcoin. And so if Ron Swanson owned Bitcoin, nobody would have access to his stuff when he died. And so Ethereum's idea behind this was sort of the same, as people are going to lose their ethers over time due to different reasons, whether they lose their information or they pass away. So this is another idea. And Ethereum is in a proof of work, and a lot of people say it's going to move to a proof of stake. And that's just something to put into consideration when we're picking a way for this system to work. Now, the max money supply was not established because it's hard to get a max money supply when the money supply is currently being generated each and every year. Now, Ethereum went live on July 30th, 2015. This is the Genesis block. And so as you can see, there's 8,893 transactions. Now, what I read is this is the initial coin offering, that all these transactions are the initial coin offering that went into opening up the Genesis block. So all these people that invested into Ethereum, here's their transactions. And so if you go to block 1, I'll go to block 1, there's 0 transactions, because between 3:26:13 p.m. and 3:26:28 p.m. there was 0 transactions. And so there's a timestamp and everything like that. And if you look down towards the bottom, there's a gas limit. Now there's a 5 Ether gas limit on these, and as I'm about to show you in a Reddit post that I found, I followed this, and this was pretty interesting. So I'll read it to you. It says, do we know the first tangible item purchased with Ethereum? And that's what I was wondering. What was the first tangible thing? Now, Bitcoin had the pizza that was delivered, and I think it was for 100. And so I found this guy, AE Digits. He's known for Digits. Is something with blockchain. I'm not 100% sure what it is. But he said it was actually a Papa John's pizza card between myself and this guy named Lineage. So I followed these links, and here's a chat room between them. And so the first one reads, so what is with people sending 100 ethers? Oh, quick, someone send pizza or trade me for a pizza. Now, they were just picking fun at the Bitcoin, but Anthony caught on. He was like, just kind of played along with it. And eventually this led into a dialogue and said, let's see if we can get the price right. They both wanted to see if they could get the first purchase out there. And so a little bit later on, they said, we stand a better chance with the first pizza that way anyway. They talked about exchanging a gift card, and then they talked about some of the coding and just made the there at the end, you see, just made the pizza transaction. So if you see, I followed the second link there, and I wanted to see if the transaction was true. And so on block 46,214, this transaction was held. And so I just thought this was really cool because I found it in a Reddit post, and it ended up being true. And so you can see in this gas limit, it's pretty high. It was 21,750 for the limit, and they used 21,748, which is 99% of the gas limit. Now, if you look at the fee, they pay, I believe I read it was a $10 Papa John's gift card that they exchanged. Now that $10, one ether is now $133 ish, and that was almost to the day. Almost to the day today. Now here's the charts. Here's the history over time. As you can see, in January 2018, there was a peak of the US dollar. The yellow line there is how it correlates to the Bitcoin, and it just fluctuates up and down. Now, the highest value was $1,431.57, and this was in the peak January, this says 13th, and that was just a peak of it. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Going on to validator nodes, I found two different sources that gave me two different answers. And so I wanted to share both of those with you because they were roughly in the same ballpark, but they gave two different ideas of where people are using validator nodes from. And I just wanted to show you both of them because I didn't have a clear understanding of where these validator nodes are truly, what the true total count of these validator nodes is. Now, I did talk to Professor Lasty, and when we were in the office hours on Tuesday, we talked about maybe being in the 20th thousands, but that might have been closer to that peak season is what we thought. So anyway, this one shows 7,459, and this one shows 8,978, so a little closer to 9,000. I like this one a little more because it shows you the heat map, but this shows about 40% of the nodes are in the US, and this one shows that 33.57% of the nodes are in the US. So that's a pretty large chunk being in the US, so we can assume that US is probably the heaviest in nodes. Now, getting on to the good news and bad news. Bad news is DAO the DAO hack. And so this is a really big topic. The DAO hack was a model project for venture capital where investors voted for different investments. One anonymous hacker found a loop in the smart contract where they were able to steal millions of dollars. And so what happened was Ethereum decided to do a hard fork, which basically enabled transactions from investors that where money was stolen. It validated their previously invalid nodes. But a hard fork can also work in the reverse way where an invalid node can then be validated. Now moving on to some good news. Good news is NFL players and just celebrities have started talking about Ethereum. Richard Sherman invested into Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum, and Ashton Kutcher also started tweeting about Ethereum, which was pretty cool. Now, yesterday, this was really interesting because a year and a half ago, the managers, executive team at JP Morgan was talking about how irresponsible it would be for investors to start investing into cryptocurrency. Now, since yesterday, JP Morgan has developed their own cryptocurrency, and it's a stable coin linked to Ethereum. It's some sort of JP Morgan program on top of Ethereum, but essentially it's a stable coin. But my 2 cents is the financial market is seeing how cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is taking over or could take over the industry. I think they're trying to get in early and corrupt the system to validate it to a stable coin and just kind of keep their system going as long as possible. But what JP Morgan is it's a trusted third party, and trusted third parties aren't going to work in the blockchain world, in my opinion. Now, they could in some way, but if you have a decentralized system, why would you want a trusted third party? So these financial institutions are getting into the blockchain world, trying to get a leg up and just trying to get their foot in the door to just really close this out. But that's just my 2 cents. But thank you for paying attention and listening to me talk about Ethereum. Sorry I couldn't be there with you today, but this is just really exciting. I'm excited to talk to you about blockchain technology. Thank you.